Well, hello there. Welcome to episode 15 of Confessions of an Office Supply Junkie. And yes, I am an office supply junkie. This is Joe Van Cleve. Good day to you. I was in the need this morning of making a list. I have a whole bunch of errands to run, and I would normally do something like maybe grab one of these field notes notebooks, or even more common would be I make these little homemade paper wallet-sized notebooks that I call neat notebooks, made from a single sheet of notebook paper. But I was thinking today about, when you write notes, like a list, for instance, it's not anything that you would necessarily want to keep. Now, I can imagine maybe, 20 years from now, it might be kind of fun to have a pile of old to-do lists and grocery lists and shopping lists saved in some notebook somewhere, just so you can go back and look at it and think, oh, that's what I was doing way back then. But for the most part, these kinds of lists is the kind of writing activity that you don't really want to save. It isn't literature by any means. And so I got to thinking about maybe there are ways to do these kind of temporary lists that are a little bit less wasteful of paper. And I thought about, hey, I could maybe get a piece of plastic or laminate something and then write on it with some kind of a marker. And yeah, so I dug through my bins and I found these little index card packs that are lined so that the tablet can be held in portrait orientation and you can write on it. And I thought that's pretty cool, having it lined. But I wanted it to be laminated. I don't have a lamination machine, but what I do have is what I call the poor man's laminator, which is 2-inch wide clear adhesive packing tape. Now, I've been using this stuff for years for different kinds of lamination projects. In fact, this particular neat notebook, the cover, if you can see the shine on it, the cover is covered in 3 strips of 2-inch wide tape, one on each side and one down the spine. So I decided I would get me an index card today and I would just laminate it. And what I did is you first have to run the tape. You have to tear off a piece of tape longer than the card is. And you want to align one edge of the tape with the edge of the card and lay it down really neatly. And then do the same on the bottom edge so the other side is neatly aligned. And then you trim the 2 edges with scissors so that you have this nice, neat card that's been laminated. And you'll have a little bit of an overlap in the middle, but it doesn't really bother you. Do both sides, and you have yourself a nice little laminated card for taking notes with. Now, the question is, what kind of a marker are you going to use for this kind of a little laminated card? Well, you could use a dry erase marker, but obviously that's going to smudge the instant you rub it on something, so that's not really practical. The other thing you can do is get a permanent marker like a Sharpie marker. Those work really well. The problem with them is you can't easily erase it without using alcohol, and that's kind of inconvenient. But luckily for us, there is a third kind of marker pen that you may not be aware of. Here it is, the Expo Vis-a-Vis Wet Erase Marker. And a wet erase marker erases using just anything like water or any kind of moisture like that. So what I was doing is, this is my actual list here today, and I was making a list of going to Staples to get some markers. I had an old one that the cap was all torn off and I wanted to get some new ones. And then I had to go to breakfast and get some coffee beans. I had to drive across town to my favorite coffee shop for beans, and I had to get milk, and I just came home. Hey, what do you think? Just got a haircut. So there's my haircut. It's done. And the nice thing about these wet erase markers is that you write on it, and after a minute or so, or even less, it's okay to use. It'll be dry enough that it won't smear on you. You can stick it in your pocket and take it with you. Now you have an instant list. And when you're done with it, all you need is any kind of moisture. Like I have a little spray bottle of water, a little piece of tissue or Kleenex, and just like that, it erases. And now you're ready to use your laminated card for another round of note-taking. You can, you can put the pen, the wet erase marker, in your pocket with it, or if you don't think you're going to be making any more notes, you just bring the card with you, your shopping list, to-do list. I think it's really practical, and it's less wasteful than, using up nice notebooks just for to-do lists. This kind of technology, though, is predated by some older methods of making little tablet devices that go back hundreds of years. One of those was an ivory bone tablet, and these were used way back in hundreds of years ago. I even remember reading about them used in the American Revolutionary War era. Well, obviously you can't get ivory, but you can find stuff made of other kinds of animal bone. But it's really difficult to find any kind of bone-like material that's flat enough to serve as a tablet. And the only thing I've found that's practical is they have these bone folding or creasing tools. This is kind of an ivory bone-like material, and it's slightly convex. It's slightly curved on the surface. But you can take a regular pencil and then if you want to erase it, you can just wipe it off. It essentially is like a wet erase tablet. You can use a regular graphite pencil, and then you can just wipe it dry with a damp cloth. So this is kind of predates the whole idea of these tablet devices or using marker pens with special kinds of ink, just using a flat bone. Now the problem with this, of course, it would be nice to be able to have one of these, a nice little handheld tablet, maybe a little bit smaller than this, that you could use a pencil on and just wipe it clean and reuse it. But it's not practical. You can't really find the bone, a flat piece like that. I mean, the other thing you could do is you could take a little thin piece of material and you could paint it with that chalkboard paint, and like to make it like a little slate tablet that might be pocket sized, but then you have to write on it with using a piece of chalk. And the problem with chalk is it's brittle and you can't sharpen it to a small point without it breaking, so you'd be having really fat letters, and so it's not really practical for chalk with a pocket-sized little tablet. The other kind of antique, archaic writing method was a tablet covered, like a wooden tablet that was dark colored, covered in a thin layer of wax. And I'm going to experiment with this because I have out in my darkroom, I have bought a whole block of beeswax at one time with the idea of wax coating black and white photographs. And I think I'm going to try taking a piece of wood, staining it dark or something, maybe spray painting it just to start off with, and then making a little border around it, a raised border around the edge of it, maybe 1/8 of an inch raised, and then covering it with melting wax in it and making a smooth wax surface. The thing about these wax tablets is you can use just a scribe, just a sharp little point of something, and you can write in it and you'll be able to see it against the black background, and then you can simply rub the wax clear to erase it. So these are all these different ideas for having reusable note-taking surfaces where you don't have to keep using up paper all the time. The easiest way to do it is get one of these Expo vis-a-vis wet erase markers. I got mine at my local Staples, but I'm sure any office supply place carries them. They have these not only in black, but you can also get them in various colors. And a little laminated card. Well, this is Joe Van Cleve, and I am an office supply junkie. Until next time, you have yourselves a great day.